Thank you for watching our Vows by Mojica. These episodes offer realistic tips and stories that will help keep our marriages strong. Here, we interview couples who have been married for 20 plus years, who show us what it means to them to keep their marital vows. This season, we interviewed couples who, during moments of trials, differences, and tragedies, learned that it was by stepping back and refocusing their energy and commitment in each other that they were enabled to find strength in their marriage.
Well, I was born and raised on a farm in Franklin County with my sister and my folks. We lived in a one-room house that was an unattached garage. Our home burned when I was 3. And so that was, we didn't have running water. We didn't have, we did have electricity. We had one light bulb. And that was how we grew up. Most of the area was poor around us anyway, and so I didn't feel like I was any different than anybody else. I was real active in sports, did a lot of things, and got a lot of recognition for that. So that was, and I hunted and fished and trapped as a kid, like my dad did. So enjoyed all of that. Went to K-State. Cindy and I started dating when we were 15, and we married after our first year, and
of college.
Yeah, after our first year, that's true. We moved to Topeka, and my first job was my last job, and I'm in my 47th year. I retired 6 years ago, and I enjoyed myself so much that I'm still doing it. Confucius once said that a man who loves his work never works a day in his life. And so that's kind of how I feel about what I've done. And that gets us to where we are today.
Okay, I grew up about 10 miles north of Ray. We actually met in 4-H. I don't really remember much about him then. And then we were in high school together and started dating when we were sophomores. I grew up on a dairy farm, so I kind of like cows now, and my kitchen is decorated with cows. I went to Clark's Business School in Topeka for a year before we got married, and then we got married and I worked at K-State. We lived in student housing there. Moved to Topeka. We were here, I guess I was pregnant when you graduated, so we had our first child in 71. And I babysat for quite a while when the kids were young, and then when our youngest of 3 started kindergarten, I went back to work at a law office, and I was there 8.5 years at that law firm. And during the summers, I'd just work part-time so I could spend time with the kids. And then one of the bosses I worked for, he went to another firm, and so I followed him, and I'm still there part-time at that firm. So I've been there, I think it's almost 25 years now. So, now I'm part-time. I work about 12 hours a week, which is really cool. Kind of keeps you going. Well, we met in 4-H. How old were we then?
I think we were like 7. So, 87 years ago. So we met before school. I mean, in 4-H, and so we were our schools consolidated, and so we started a high school together.
Right.
So when we were freshmen, that was when we first came in contact with each other.
Yeah. My first recollection of Ray is when must have been in 7th or 8th grade, and I was at the other school then, and we played each other, and I remember him, he was really good at basketball, And he'd go down, he'd make a basket, and then he'd just look and grin at us running back down to the other end of the court, and I thought, kind of cocky little guy, but anyway, and then as freshmen, I don't know that we were really friends. I knew who he was, obviously, but then as a sophomore, one night I was at a basketball game and he was playing basketball, and I thought, I'm going to go out with him. And so that was kind of the beginning.
It wasn't my idea at all. My coach said that, stay away from alcohol and girls. And so that was what I did. So I got kind of backdoored into this date. But anyway, that was the
beginning.
That was the start. I don't know that there are any exact moments. I mean, we've been together our entire adult lives. And so I guess, I could say that almost all the moments are cherished. And I don't know that there's anything that really sticks out more than others. I mean, it was fabulous having our 3 kids and
the grandkids.
And the grandkids. All those things are incredibly important. But, I don't know. There's nothing that really jumps out to me. We just been really steady, all those years, and love, has always stayed, and it's now, and I'm sure it's grown deeper, but I can't put my finger on anything that seems, way more important than the other, with the exception of the kids and grandkids and that kind of stuff.
And watching our kids get married and have kids, that's
yeah.
also something we cherish.
And then watching them, it's and seeing our kids and our grandkids and that kind of stuff. Our grandkids, the boys are play the same sports that that our son did a lot, and the same number and the same position, and so it's really neat watching them. It's watching our kids a second time.
Right.
And so that's really neat. And all the kids have been, for the most part, very active in sports. And our 2 oldest granddaughters played soccer through college, and our son played baseball through college, and our all the little ones are real active in sports. And so it's and they're all good students, and so it's just fun watching that. And I think that's
what we do now more than anything, is just follow the grandkids.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I knew somebody who said that their favorite hobbies is whatever their kids or grandkids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like when the kids were in high school and played sports, we socialized with the other parents. I mean, that was what we did, Probably respect for each other.
Oh, yeah. I think what's worked really well for us is that we have a number of things in common and a number of things that are not common at all. And that's what's helped us a lot. Our political views are very close. The way we brought up our kids, is the same. Where our university, we're both incredibly supportive of K-State, which again is something that's neat. Mm-hmm. And other things we're totally opposite on. Cindy loves shopping and doing all those kinds of things, and I love hunting and fishing and trapping, and so it's neat to have things that are different. And so and supporting the other person in those areas. We have friends that the husband or the wife complains a lot about what the other one does, and I think it's incredibly important to have that away time, and have the other person respect that time, and so that's been very good for us. And I think because of that, we argue we very seldom ever have an argument, because there's nothing to argue about. When we're doing together things, we're together, and when we're not, we're not. And so I think that really works out well in that regard.
And just giving the other person, that space to if I don't want, I'm not going to trap. I'm not really going to hunt, but I don't care if he does, because he loves it. So that's fine with me. He's very kind, and I love that he lets me do what I like doing that he doesn't like doing. I think that's awesome. I just love him. I have for a long time.
Think of more things.
Well, you're a great husband. You're a great grandfather.
I feel so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, and I've told a lot of my friends this. Cindy's my best friend, and so even though I have a lot of buddies that I do a lot of stuff with, Cindy's still my best friend. And I can come home and tell her what I did or didn't do, and she doesn't really care, but she's still my best friend. And so at the end of the day, that's who I come home to. And so I think that's probably the most important thing of anything. It's nice to be in love, but it's even neater when that person is your best friend, and that's who you want to spend time with.
Man, that's a long time ago.
How many years? I don't think we've told the camera yet.
It'll be 50 in August. Yeah.
So we were teenagers. So
we were, yeah. We were 19.
We had just turned 19.
Turned 19, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in June.
Right. I can remember it.
Well, I mean, back then we didn't have, dances or anything like that. So we didn't, we had a reception and that was pretty much it. I guess walking down the aisle to the man I love, was a neat thing.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, back then things were a lot different than they are today. I enjoyed the honeymoon because we went to Colorado and went fishing.
The first time he was out of the state of Kansas was
I had never been out of Kansas before, and so we went to Colorado and met an old couple at what was the name of that lake we went to?
Well, it was at Estes Park.
Estes Park, yeah. Lake Estes.
Lake Estes.
Jack and Gertie.
Still remember Jack and Gertie.
Well, they were a couple. They were probably in their 70s, and so anyway, and then we went from there to the Black Hills, and of course I'd never been up there either, and we went fishing.
He got to fish a lot. That was okay. So, I didn't even care then.
They were just an old couple in the room next to us, I think, and in the hotel or motel or whatever it was we were at. Just a nice old couple, and back. Things were a lot different then than they are now, so we didn't have email addresses or anything else. So we never saw them again, but enjoyed spending. In fact, you didn't go out there a lot.
Not a lot.
I was usually out there I'd never trout fished before, so this was my first experience at that. So anyway, it was, and we've been on our honeymoon ever since. I don't know. I don't think anybody gave us any advice. I
don't remember it either.
Wasn't your folks or my folks?
No.
I don't think we had any.
So you just wrote the book.
Well, pretty much.
I don't know.
I mean,
we. But to me personally, it's a matter of growing together. I mean, everybody who gets married likes each other at the time, and so you have to grow together. I don't know. I guess I can relate it to my work thing I was just talking about. I mean, if you love what you do, it's not like going to work. And so in a marriage, if you love your spouse and you love the fact that you're married, it's not like you're working at it. A lot of our friends tell us they had to work really hard at being married or at marriage, and I don't think we have. I mean, it's just we flow together. One thing I've told people this, that I've never allowed us to go to bed angry at each other, and so we'll talk it out, because I think that's extremely important. A lot of people hold grudges or get mad, and they're mad the next day, and so if we do have an argument over something, we're gonna talk it through and be done, and then not have to discuss it anymore.
And the last thing we say to each other every day is, I love you, before we go to sleep.
Yeah.
So. Well, it's hard, obviously. It's harder.
Well, and it was a little easier for us than most people, because
You worked.
I worked where we lived, and so in the botanical garden, and that was part of the job. Was we had a house that was furnished, and so the kids were right there, and as Cindy said earlier, she didn't work from when Stacy was
born
until Ty went.
No,
until
Ty, that's grandson.
Until Stan went to school.
Yeah.
So those years she was home, and I was there during the day, and so again that was pretty easy, for us, because the kids were there all the time, and they played in the park and
had a great backyard.
yeah, they played in the botanical garden and swam in our pools and that kind of stuff. So that part was, pretty easy. There wasn't much of a transition time in there, and we were still active in all their activities, and we were president of the PTA and all that kind of PTO and that kind of stuff for the school, and we chased them around to all their sporting stuff and dance and ballet and that kind of stuff. But again, it was easier for us because we had them at home there with us. We do that every day. Have we done that yet today, dear?
Well, sometimes I think, we're such a good match because nobody else would put up with either one of us.
Wait, no, I don't agree with that at all.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I just feel very lucky and blessed that I chose the right person. A lot of people don't, and it's, we just have had to put in not a lot of effort. I mean, it's just, and I know that I love Cindy way more than I did, but I don't know how it happened. And just the love is deeper, and we obviously know what each other's thinking pretty much all the time. And it's really easy to push the other person's button.
Yeah.
If you're tired or cranky, you can do that real easily. As
and
everybody
that happens
can.
sometimes,
Yeah. Well, we've been really lucky in the fact that nothing's went wrong for us, and we know people who have had sicknesses right after marriage, and have used those same words. Gee, I didn't realize that sickness would come this quick, but we started out with not much, we've done well, from where we came from, and so I don't know that we've.
Well, what, 10 or 15 years ago, I had pretty major surgery, and I mean, that's really been the only sickness we had, and it came out fine, so, but still, it makes you stop and think, appreciate what you have, and stuff, so.
Yeah, that was a scary time.
Yeah, but that's really been the only thing. Well, I mean, if you're not sure what the outcome's going to be of the surgery, then you really do appreciate what you have and are thankful for it, because it could all be over, you know. And I guess that strengthened us some.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you appreciate the other person more when
Right.
you think that there's potential that other person might not be there. And I'm sure I was a little nicer to her for a period of time. At least a week or two or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Well, we have date nights or date afternoons. We'll go to a movie, out to late lunch or something, or go out to eat on a Friday night. Or we'll take a day trip somewhere. You know, we've done that.
Yeah, I mean, just things like that. And just little things. I mean, we usually Cindy likes to have her back tickled, and that's an every night.
Oh yeah,
That's an every night thing. Yeah, that's usually how we go to bed is tickling her back, and that's just something we've always done. I mean, for lots and lots of years. Yeah. And we like to share things together. You know, as we'd mentioned or we've talked before, I went to Africa last year, and when I got back, I thought, well, geez, you know, this was a fabulous trip, but I didn't take my best friend. And so that's why we're going back this year for our anniversary, just because it just didn't seem right to do something like that and not share it with Cindy. And so that's why we're both going this time, and taking a whole bunch of our best friends from college. And we've been lucky in the fact that all of our best friends are still married too.
Yeah.
And
No
so
divorces.
we had, that's a good support system, that our friends they're all married 50 years too, just like we are.
Yeah,
And so that's pretty neat.
Well, and our parents too. Both of our parents, you know, were together all the time. No divorces there. And you don't see that much anymore today. So that was a good foundation.
Yeah. Well, I think mainly it's with our best friends. I mean, their marriages are very strong too, but it's normally talking about kids.
Yeah.
And challenges with or challenges with the grandkids, and
Or son-in-laws.
yeah, and that kind of stuff. I don't, but their marriages are all just as strong as ours are. You know, they've never had issues that we know of at all. But you can bounce things off of them and that kind of stuff. But it's mainly related to kids or grandkids.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It sounds like that you guys don't even say anything negative about each other to anybody else.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I get irritated sometimes. One thing about Ray.
Not since yesterday when I brought up. You're bringing more trout home again.
Ray is not a handyman, and that kind of irks me sometimes, you know. And all these other our friends, I mean, their husbands, you know, they're very handy around the house, and he's not so much, but that's okay.
I'm the hunter gatherer. I would say grow together, give each other space, have your own hobbies. Don't complain when the other person, you know, wants to do something that you're not particularly excited about doing. I don't know, things like that. We got married to stay together, and so
Right.
you know, it was for the long haul. I mean, for us, it was forever, and so you just do the things you need to do to become closer, and
You know,
don't go to bed, don't go to sleep, not feeling good about the other person. You know, talk it out, and I mean, that's what's worked for us, and still continues to work for us. Have things in common and have things not in common. as people are married and they have kids and they have grandkids, they'll have things in common that way. But it's also important to have friends outside of the marriage that you do things with, and but it's also important to have friends that are couples and you do things together, and that support is good also.
Well, kind of like what he said, I think you've got to give each other your own space and respect each other, and can't think of anything right now.
You're fine. Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, we're lucky. We, of course, maybe it's just because of all of the years of marriage. There are certain hot buttons that can cause conflicts. One of them is politics, and luckily we have the same political views, and so there's not something there, and we have the same school views.
Yeah.
As far as our universities, a lot of things that you can really tear people apart, and we're together on those important issues, and we're together on our parenting and that type of stuff. And so if you can get those lined up, it makes the other things not nearly as important. There are always going to be challenges, but if you can get the big stuff out of the way, the little things kind of fall into place.
So, did you ever think about those big things before you got married?
No, we were just kids. I mean,
Yeah.
we were just
we were 19,
teenagers.
yeah.
I mean, we didn't know what we were going to do.
I couldn't cook,
Yeah, Cindy didn't take any cooking lessons
No,
before
no.
we got married, and
My mother didn't really teach me.
And so we had some interesting meals.
Yeah. That we did. That we did.
But we didn't even know what we wanted to do. I mean, I knew I was going to go to K-State, but I changed majors, and we had my first job and my only job I didn't even interview for. I didn't even a buddy of mine who graduated the year before and came to Topeka so they had an opening, and I wanted to know if I wanted it, and I said, well, yeah, I didn't have any plans, and so I didn't even interview. I mean, I came to work. That was my interview, and so stuff just kind of happened along the way for us. We didn't.
That wouldn't happen now.
No. But I mean, we were always together, and there was 3 or 4 couples of us that just did about everything. Back then you didn't have any money, so you played cards, and you did that kind of stuff. And all of us guys would go fishing or whatever it was, and then Cindy would attempt to cook something.
Yeah.
And
Well, basically, we lived on hot dogs and SpaghettiOs.
yeah, and Roman noodles.
Yeah.
And we had no. We lived in the married housing at K-State and had no. There were no basements, and Cindy's always been scared of storms, and so one night, and we lived on the upper floor. There are two levels to the married housing. There was a really bad storm, and Cindy said, I'm scared. Can you call somebody and see if there's any tornadoes in the area? And so the only number I could find in the phone book was the Highway Patrol dispatch. And as I'm talking to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher was telling me that there were no storms in the area, the tornado hit, and it lifted the roof right off of our building. And so we're sitting there. I hung the phone up, by the way. It just peeled the whole roof right off our whole complex.
We moved
Yeah.
to a lower level. Yeah.
So anyway.
Leave the room.
Well, if you've been married for very long or even dated for a long time, you know what upsets the other person, and you just don't do it. I mean, you still have to compromise, but you still know what the other person will get upset about, and so you just don't do it. I mean, that's all. Most things that people have an argument about don't amount to anything anyway. It's stupid stuff. And so, if you just think about that for a minute, it's not worth arguing over. And Cindy and I both have, I would say, very easygoing personalities, and so that, we have friends that have type A personalities, and that's more of a challenge when you got somebody that's really a high-strung person. But we're not, and so that makes that a lot easier. And of course, even with those people, I mean, you're still the same thing. I mean, you know what upsets the other person and what doesn't, and most things aren't that important, anyway.
Okay, I can tell you one thing that really upsets him is if he's been gone and comes home, and like I'm in the kitchen, and he'll come in and I won't hear him come in, and then I'll look up and I'll see him and I'll just scream. Because it's just an instant reaction, it just drives him crazy.
I try to always make noise.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't hear that, and I guess I'm pretty jumpy.
Yeah,
but I scream a lot if I get scared. But I think that probably irritates him about me more than anything else.
Yeah.
So you make a lot of noise too.
I attempt to make a lot of noise.
And if the dog doesn't bark and he's there, then it's just
and it's just like
and
a
like
spiral.
it's like I know it's him, but yet
it's the same scream.
Yeah. He calls it blood curdling.
Yeah, it's a cry. It's. Well, I think the most important thing now, watching our kids, and even watching our grandkids, is communication. Take the time to communicate what needs to be communicated, and whether that's in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is in a day's time, you've got to be able to sit down and communicate either what's going on or what you're feeling or that type of thing, because our world is so busy that you can go days and actually you're not even thinking about things, just because there's so much stuff going on. And I think for a young couple today, because the same thing is going to happen with them when they have kids and all the activities that are set up now for those kids to do, they've got, and now both spouses always work. And so you've got to set aside some time for, you can call it personal time, you can call it whatever you want to, but to me it's communication time. There are a lot of things that go into that, but you've got to have time to talk about what's going on, and you can spend so much time doing stuff that you think's important, but you're letting slide some of the things that are really important, and that's the personal time, between a husband and wife.
Yeah. Because you're just, like our grandkids, they have no free time. They're just running all the time. And the parents, sometimes they don't even hardly see each other in a day. So.
And that's all part of that instant gratification that we didn't have, when we were kids. There wasn't even fast food. And so, and now, the kids expect that instant gratification. And so I'm sure that young people getting married today, marriage is a little bit tougher just because of that. And so, but knowing that going in and knowing the things that you need to still do, I think is probably the biggest advice that we could give to anybody, is that you still have to, no matter how hectic things get, you've still got to take that time to have some personal time and some time to communicate what you're really feeling. And I think if a couple does that, that's about the best thing that we could offer, I think.
Well, there's a lot of things that I like about him, but probably the thing I get every day is that back tickling, that might be kind of silly, but it's just a good thing. You know, I mean, it just, I know he loves me when he's doing that, and you know, it's the last thing we do usually in the evening if we're watching TV or something. He's always tickling my back, and I get that a lot, and I like it. Yeah.
Well, I've said it before. I mean, to me, the most important thing is that Cindy's my best friend, and so everything else is not as important as that is. And so that's, I mean, she's a rock from that standpoint. You know, I always know she's got my back where she is. Never have to worry about what she's thinking or doing because it's always either related to me or our kids or our grandkids.
Well, and I think we have a trust. We've always had trust. You know, we've never worried about the other one doing anything that, you know, wasn't right. So.
How do you keep that trust?
It never getting broken, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you don't break the trust in any way, then there's not much to worry about. And we've always known what the other person's doing, and you know what where they're at, and that kind of stuff.
And if I'm late getting home, he's calling me to see if I'm okay.
To make sure there wasn't an accident somewhere.
Yeah. Just checking on you, see where you're at. Okay.
Well, to me, I mean, that's the easiest question you've asked, and that's because that only comes through time. And so we started going out together when we were teenagers. We got married as teenagers. We went through our early life, our middle life, and now as we're becoming even older yet, you know, we've had all those years to grow together. And so that's a pretty easy question just because that only comes through time. And that's how it's worked for us. And we'll continue to get older and love each other more.
Yeah, yeah. And we dated 4 years before we got married. So, you know, it'll really be 54 years that we've been together.
Yeah.
And we had a few breakups in there in high school, but, you know.
Well, and, you know, almost 20 of those were good. That'll get edited.
Yeah.